think why you and I get so excited about the topic of money is because everyone deals with it, and it unlocks power, it unlocks resource, it unlocks safety, it unlocks so much. Yeah. And when you just aren't taught the rules of the game, that's it. It's so much harder to play. The game plays you.
No Free Lunch is presented by Piro. The information provided on this podcast is for informational purposes only and should not be considered financial or legal advice. Always consult with a qualified financial and or legal professionals before making any legal or financial decisions or investments. Today, I'm incredibly excited to introduce one of our newest regulars here on No Free Lunch, Berna Anat. Berna calls herself a financial hype woman, and that she is. Basically, she's a personal finance educator who's dedicated to teach other people about money and giving them the tools of financial literacy. She's the author of the Amazon best-selling book, Money Out Loud. And if you haven't seen her on social media, trust me, go find her. Every post is a crash course in how to be smart with your money. She's also a first-generation Filipina American who's climbed her way out of $50,000 in debt and built a successful career. As a first-gen kid myself, we've got a lot in common, so I want to get into it right here on No Free Lunch. Welcome to the show. I got to be excited and match your energy because you are the ultimate hype woman. And I'm so excited to just talk to you because obviously throughout this process and you becoming one of our consistent contributors, I've always enjoyed our conversations from a standpoint of just financial literacy. Yes. And I aspire to be like you, to be able to teach people and implement. So I'm excited for us to power and come together as a media power couple, for lack of better words, all respect to my wife. But tell the audience who you are, where you came from, and who you came from, and ultimately what your goal in life is, and what we're trying to share here on No Free Lunch.
Of course. I'm so psyched to be here, so privileged. Ndamukong, thank you for having me. And I love the fact that not only are you asking me, who I am, but who I came from, which I feel like is such a first gen question.
Yes, it
makes
is.
me so psyched because it tells me that you understand that when you are first, second gen, you're not just bringing yourself into rooms, especially rooms of privilege like this. It's a privilege to be able to speak with you and to, talk about money on a platform like The Athletic. And I think all the time about who am I bringing into the room with me. So as we said, I am Berna. I'm a first gen Filipino American. I'm a daughter, and I am a niece, and I am a rich auntie in training. But who I'm bringing into the room with me actually reminds me of, I don't know if you can see, folks who can see the video can see my tattoo. But there is a tattoo going up from my wrist all the way up to my arm. It's called batok. So this is Filipino traditional tapping tattoo. It's one that I received with my sister. And actually the markings are there to remind me of the many generations before me that I carry with me. So I literally carry my ancestors into every room. And it's incredibly important because when we talk about money, I think you and I can relate to this. It was only recently, like in our generations, that we can openly talk about money, access the kind of wealth that we have. My Lola, my grandma, couldn't even get a credit card in the United States in the 1970s. And so I am a Filipino-American daughter of immigrants. I'm a financial educator. I come from Alex and Bima, who come from Davao and Manila in the Philippines. I am a dancer. Like I said, I'm a rich auntie in training for my 4 nieces who I'm obsessed with and I also have tattoos for. And everything I do inside of finance and beyond is essentially to bring honor to the people that are on my arm, to my ancestors, but also to show my nieces what else there is in life, what else is possible. So that's what kind of drives everything I do.
No, I love that. And for me, when I look at it from that same being first generation in the US and born here, which I'm very thankful for, but my mom's Jamaican, my dad's Cameroonian, and those roots are so rich. And not a lot of people, especially from African-American descents or BIPOC descents, don't necessarily know where they come from when they're born here in the States. And so I know exactly where that is. I can trace right back to where my name comes from and the ethos and the thesis of where, like, whose shoulders I carry. And I think where it really kind of hit home for me was not only growing up in and around the cultures of going to Kwanzaa and doing those different particular pieces and going to African meetings from a Cameroon perspective and even from a Nigerian perspective, because there's a lot of cross-pollination between there. But when I first got to the league, into the NFL, my dad and I did an interview. He and I did an interview with CNN. And at that moment, it was solely for CNN in Cameroon and that entire country. And they said it was going out to the entire country.
Wow.
And they look at you as you're carrying them on your shoulders as you're going into this league. And you got to make them proud. Ooh, like, to me, like, it was insane to be able to, one, take that, but then obviously then in 2014, 4 or 5 years later, after getting into the league, going back there and actually being able to spend time with my dad where he grew up and truthfully understand that. And I have a special name that I'm basically the ambassador of Cameroon and Bamenda, where my dad is from.
Wow.
And whatnot. And so it's super insane and a lot of carries a lot of weight, which I'm happy to do and continues to do in a lot of ways. But let's jump further more into some of this excitement of just talking about what it was growing up in the narrative around money and your family. Because I know for me, it was not always an easy conversation and a fun conversation.
Yep. Well, I can echo that and add that there was no conversation. I would say that the feeling and emotion around money in my family, if I can express it as a sound, it was a shh. We don't talk about it. It's silence. Yeah. There's no discussion about money. And that was from the jump, right? It was growing up, we didn't talk about money, and we also didn't have money. We were definitely lower middle economic status. So it's not like there was much to talk about, but you could feel the tension about money in the family. We went through the 2008 housing crisis and had to foreclose our home. My mom was unemployed for a while and laid off. And so we all felt that all these things were obvious even to us as kids, but we never talked about it because culturally money is kind of a taboo subject.
Yeah.
Money is not to be talked about. It's to be bragged about in some contexts, but we're never talking about the nitty gritty or the negative. I like to tell people I have this deeply unscientific theory. It's called the frugal flex theory. And I think it applies to a lot of first gen families.
Okay.
And I would love to hear if this is true for you, but one of the reasons growing up first gen is so confusing financially is because you're kind of ping-ponging along this spectrum that I call the frugal flex spectrum. Okay. So one day you could be living all the way on the frugal side. And this is the, if your friends can afford Jordans, go live with them. I can get you Bordens from the Philippines. We're bringing Tupperware to the movie theater. I can't afford that. Why would you ask me for that? You know, a lot of like, no, we can't afford that. Later that day, you can go to a family party and suddenly we're wearing all the name brands that we have. The aunties are talking about what they, what the purses that they're bringing in. Oh, did you see so-and-so went to Santorini on Facebook? And oh, so-and-so's daughter is a doctor now and they bought a Mercedes. The conversations are all about the money that you have, that you want to show off and flex. So as a kid, a first gen kid, I'm like, okay, are we rich or are we poor? Are we broke or are we balling? Like, I don't understand.
Yeah.
And so it's silence, it's confusion. And then I also would add a layer onto that for Filipino culture. And I would love to hear if there's something similar with Cameroonian or Jamaican culture. In Filipino culture, in Tagalog, it's a concept called utang na loob, which means debt of the blood debt. And so this is really commonly felt to folks who immigrate outside of the Philippines. You basically feel indebted to the people back home forever. And there's no amount of, I see the recognition in the face. There's no amount of money. There's no amount of visiting. There's no amount of material things that could actually pay that back because you're forever indebted. And so it's this like triple threat. We're silenced around money. We don't talk about it. We flex on it in weird ways that kind of bring shame and confusion to each other. And then we also feel eternally guilty about any kind of money we receive. We feel like it needs to be bled back into the family. And so messy. Messy is the
The
general
best way to,
thing.
messy and confused is the biggest thing that I wholeheartedly agree with you on. And to your point, like that frugal flex, that's an amazing term. You need to coin that and copyright that.
Deeply
and keep
unscientific.
that.
Yes.
But for me, like I really saw it with my dad because my dad left Cameroon, played professional soccer in Germany, then came to the States and got his degree and became an engineer and did all these different things. And he's got like, I want to say like 8 sisters and a couple half brothers and whatnot. And all of them look at him, oh, you're our ticket for one, you need to make sure we're healthy and paid and living fat at home, but also at the same time, like they don't realize he's also struggling to make ends meet in the States and whatnot. So it's not as sweet and cool as everybody may think.
Totally.
I didn't really have too much of the frugal and flex side of things because both my parents were like, hey man, we're frugal. You're going to get what you need and that's it. Don't ask me for nothing more. And it's like when it really got into a point of saying, all right, you're going to have the ability to play sports and go to AAU soccer, AAU basketball and whatnot. Well, in turn, you're going to go help us with these apartments and you're going to mow the lawn. You're going to pick up this trash. We got an eviction. You're going to put these gloves on. You're going to put this mask on and clean it out and whatnot. So it's also was a combination of saying you have to be ingrained and you have to be a part of this entrepreneurship for us to all be successful because our collective success will now become success for you as an individual. And they were giving me entrepreneurship that I didn't even know about already because my mom was a teacher. My dad was an engineer. They had their own 2 companies, but they also invested in apartments and said, all right, here we go. Now this is how we're going to have additional income and passive income while we have our main jobs that are feeding the opportunity for us to be able to make these investments after 20, 30 years of working our business. And so to me, it is very, very interesting to see how it's like evolved over time. And now I look back at those experiences from a financial perspective, but it was like early on, like I remember 10, 12 years old, like, don't ask me for nothing. I'm just going to give you what you need. And that's it. Like we are for sure on a budget and a hard budget of maximum of what we can get, what we can do throughout the year.
I wonder too, I'm thinking about like 12-year-old Ndamukong, and it's like, well, hello, welcome to the world. You're an entrepreneur, by the way. Parents are entrepreneurs. You know, do you remember what that was like growing up? Like if in my mind, you know, both of my parents, they work 9-to-5 jobs. So it was not very entrepreneurial. This is entrepreneur life was very new to me. I had to learn it as an adult. So as a kid, what were those conversations about money like? I'm imagining there were conversations about money because you were helping to make it, but I'm curious how that felt for you as a kid.
I think a lot of what I go back to is, again, those apartments and then being able to, the only way that you have discretionary income, as we call it now, was if we go and build these different things together as a family. If you're expecting for me to go and do it all by myself, you're not getting anything. Like this is a team family effort. And now I'm bringing you into the fold. You're now old enough to start having these conversations with you where, all right, you're in elementary, you're not really comprehending and understanding why we're only eating 15 bean soup for the entire week. As my mom said, no, I made this pot on Sunday. You're going to finish it on Friday to the last drop before I cook the next thing. Exactly. We got a gallon of milk. Make sure you ration that gallon of milk. Don't just start chugging it in the first two days of me buying it on Sunday. And so understanding those different pieces, those were like the first initial conversations. And then it advanced into, all right, I'm 12, 13, 14 in middle school. You're big enough. You're strong enough. Like I remember vividly my mom's minivan. I take out the seat in the middle seat, take it out, put it in the garage. I pick up the lawnmower, put it in the car.
Wow.
Set it up, close the door, and me and her drive to her rental. I pull it out. I mow the lawn. She's checking on all these other different particular pieces around the property. I clean it all up. I put it in a trash bag, put it in the trunk, the cuttings in the back of the trunk. I lift up the mower,
this
put it back in there.
Yeah.
And then we go home. So like, that's what, like I vividly remember those moments, but I was also spending time with my mom, and she's teaching me these different things of what it is to have an apartment. But it also ingrained to me, I don't like dealing with Section 8. I don't like dealing with the sheriffs. And I'm watching these things with her that she had to deal with and whatnot. And my dad censored me a little bit from it because I think he didn't really want me to see that. But as I got older and he saw my mom was doing it, he brought me all the way into the fold as well from his business. And I started working like on summers. You want a new BMX bike? Well, you're going to come with me to this TriMet job. You're going to lift all this work, all this heavy stuff within reason.
Sure.
And then help me get this job done. Now here's your $1,000 or $900 or whatever it is for this brand new bike. And then you can enjoy it for the last 2 weeks of the summer because that's all that you have left in the summer.
Welcome to the working world, son. You don't have time to enjoy the things you buy. What an important early lesson. In general, like I'm sitting here just in awe that you were kind of given this real life experience as such a young person, but it was so organic to the family. You know, it wasn't like they were sitting there showing you flashcards. They were showing you the real. And I wish this for everyone, but especially first gen folks who get to unlock those conversations in such an organic way with your family. It's really cool.
No, I appreciate it. And I think that's part of why for me, like I want to share these experiences similar to how my dad did for me and my mom did for me for my boys. Like you guys are for sure going to have plenty of money to be successful and do those different things. Yeah. But at this particular point in time, I'm trying to ingrain in you work ethic and guidance and how you think through things and things of that nature. And for me, that I think is the most priceless thing that I can give them. Because if I give them a trust fund and I give them these different things, they're just going to think it comes from a tree. And that's where like, hey, Dad, let's just go buy a hose. Like, no, I purposely sometimes just take them to the store. Yeah. We look around. And then we leave and don't get anything. You can't go to the store every single time and expect that you're getting it. I took them to an ATV store the other day and they were like, oh, we're about to get an ATV. I'm super excited. Let's go. Dad's going to let me get a helmet. He's going to let me do this. And I looked at my son, Kari, and he was so heartbroken. And like, it made me almost want to buy it. And I was like, no, I got to stay strong.
Wow.
He's like, Dad, I really, really want this. And I was like, I know you do, but you don't need it right now. Ooh. Let's look at it. Let's understand it. And we can come back. And I also threw my wife under the bus a little bit and said, hey, let's ask your mom. If she says yes, maybe. Knowing she's out of town and she's not going to answer.
That is amazing. This is a kind of generational wealth that you're passing on to them. That's not just money, right? It's not just dollars. You're teaching them lessons and mindset. That's like incredibly invaluable. And so I'm happy to hear that it's being passed on to your kids, and it's giving me some lessons to pass on to my nieces as well, because they need to be taken to a store and taken out, I think.
Yeah, for sure. Let's fast forward a little bit and let's talk about what it was like being $50,000 in debt and needing to work your way out of that. How did that come about? Because for me, I was very, very fortunate of having a scholarship, going to college, and didn't have to kind of worry about those different things. So I've never really understood like 100% what it looks like to be in significant debt. So how did you handle having $50,000 worth of debt and then working yourself out of that?
For sure. I think in the very beginning, I understood debt to sort of be, first it was like, we were sold as millennials, hey, get into this debt, sign this, binding contract as a newly minted 18-year-old. You don't need to understand the terms and conditions. It's legal, blah, blah, blah. You get to go to school. You get to go to your dream school even if you just sign on this dotted line. And by the way, your parents could also sign for stuff for you. They super don't understand what's going on, but just get them to sign the thing. And you might have to translate the document. You might have to forge some of it. I feel like I could say this on record now. It's been many years and I paid off my debt. My parents did not sign my FAFSA. None of that was all me. Okay. First gen kids, all me.
Yeah.
But you do that with this hope and this understanding that I'm going to get a quote unquote good job after school and pay it off. Now, I just heard a million millennials, angels just scream around us because we all know that's not the truth. Yes. A lot of us graduated, right, with tons and tons of debt. And even my $50,000 of debt is pretty small compared to folks who go on and do, other vocational training, to go to grad school, law school, medical school. We're talking six figures and beyond. And so from that end, eventually it just sort of feels like a death sentence, one that we like willingly walked into. You just assume that the debt will be with you forever. And like yourself, to be honest, like I really try to stress this as a financial educator, you cannot tips and tricks your way necessarily out of major debt. You need a windfall. You need some sort of like real boost in your income. And when I was really accruing my debt, I was a hopeful magazine journalist in New York City. Remember magazines? Remember when people used to read magazines?
I do remember magazines. Mm-hmm. Ebony especially sat on my mom's coffee table.
Yes, exactly. It was like the Ebony Glamour 17 and worked for those titles. I accrued a lot of debt working for magazines like that. And it wasn't until I moved back to the Bay Area. I was freelance at the time. I moved back to the Bay Area. I got a full-time job. I worked in tech. And it was not a wild amount of money, but definitely more than I had been seeing as a freelance journalist, a little baby girl in New York City trying to make it. And because that paycheck was coming in every 2 weeks, that was new for me. I was like, okay, that's when I was like, I have no excuse anymore. I'm going to go see what people are saying about this budgeting thing. I used to call it like the ancient Caucasian art of budgeting. Like I only heard my white friends talk about this. What is budgeting? I did what every millennial would do. And I go onto the internet and just like Google how to.
Yeah.
And what I found from there was that all the financial educators, the gurus, the people like, I talk about it. They're like, oh, you got to listen to this guy's podcast. You got to read this guy's blog. It was all older white men. Or as I like to say, finance was hella male, hella pale, hella stale. And so not only am I like trying to learn what I never learned, but I'm learning it from people who the information is useful, but I have to translate it for myself, almost like culturally and from the financees. Mm-hmm. And so moving on from there, I created my own budgeting system. And then I don't know how much you got into Instagram like back in the day. Ndamukong, like, did you ever post a boomerang? Boomerangs?
Yes, I know boomerangs. I still love boomerangs to this day. I haven't used them recently, but I'd still enjoy them.
Because us millennials.
You get your cut right here.
Exactly. That was the content. And millennials, we would post a boomerang to the feed with full earnestness and be like, yes, hot. Now it's like not cute to do that anymore, apparently. Yeah. But basically all this financial educator stuff started because I posted a boomerang of this Google Doc I created and been using for several weeks. I was like, this is my financial journal. The spreadsheets aren't really working for me. The apps aren't really working for me. But I open this Google Doc and every 2 weeks when I get my paycheck, I journal about my feelings around my money. And I talk to myself in the document about what I'm going to do. So I like filmed the boomerang of the document going up and down. And that blew up. I got a ton of comments and a ton of DMs.
Was that your aha moment?
Yes.
An epiphany for you?
Yes, exactly. Okay. I had this major like this is a weird pixelated picture of like a Google Doc. But people were so mind blown because they were like, one, we're not supposed to talk about money as like brown people and women. Two, you're a brown woman talking about money out loud and about your debt. What's that about? Is the ceiling going to cave in? It's not. And so I got a ton of DMs of people who didn't want to comment. They were like, I saw your post. I feel weird commenting because, it's about money, but I'm really inspired by you. And this is so cool. I was like, one post did all this. Yeah. And it made me realize that folks need to hear about money from people who look and feel like them.
Yep.
And I'm always creating content. I always say for like my inner 12-year-old, I need to translate everything for my inner 12-year-old. And I realized that a lot of us are, I like to say young at wallet. Like a lot of us are 12 when it comes to financial education. So what I translate hits with people, and I just kept being obnoxious and it worked.
And it's crazy that you say that because being young with your wallet is 1,000% what an athlete is or an entertainer is.
Yes.
Going into the real world, let alone into a $1 billion organization plus multi-billion dollar organization. And they just automatically think, wow, you're rich and you're great at this sport. You're supposed to know everything. Absolutely not. Like, no, I'm good at my sport. Like I know how to slap somebody and get to the quarterback. I know how to push somebody out of the way and get to the running back. Like that's where like how rudimentary it is. And then like I was fortunate enough again, and I say this as many times as I can, I was fortunate enough to have great mentors and people that took a liking to me, and a specific gentleman who gave me this experience in really the game was a pale man. But it was great Joe Moglia, like
Love it.
super, super smart when it comes, chairman of the board of TD Ameritrade. He gave me the understanding. He let me see his full budget. He gave me an implementation of how it's going to work for me. And I'll never forget this. He said, at some point in time, when you get into the NFL, which obviously I was maybe 6 months away from being drafted, he was like, you're going to be spending like $50,000 a month. And I looked at him like he was crazy.
I'm sure.
I'm like, $50,000 a month? Like, absolutely not. I live in a small little condo here in Lincoln, Nebraska. My total rent payment or like mortgage payment that I was paying my dad, I think it was like $2,000.
Right.
And my utilities was like a total of like maybe $300. Like there's no way I'm spending $50,000 a month. Lo and behold, that is more than the case right now in a lot of ways of what I'm trying to aspire and grow and create from that standpoint. So like having those lessons was huge for me to be able to have that. And so as you're going through this process and you get all of this great feedback silently, what was the learning curve for you to then now to get to where you're at?
It was intense. I mean, it was sort of like, not only are you learning new facts, I'm also developing an anger and a resentment around why didn't we learn this before? You know, like I'm learning these things, I'm having to translate them for myself. And then I'm thinking back, if I learned this 10 years ago, if someone taught me how to set up my 401k when I first got a paycheck, granted, it was like a $28,000 paycheck. So it was definitely, I was not out here getting drafted by the NFL, you know, that no part of me is qualified for that. So I was in journalism, but even at that level, like, why was I not taught how like interest rate works for credit cards? And why were we not taught that if your company gives you a 401k, you might still have to go in there and invest the money as opposed to just let it sit? What does it mean to roll it over? I was just getting so pissed. So sometimes I'm like, I think my finance career was kind of motored. It was like driven by anger because I was just like flabbergasted as to how and why we didn't learn these things. So the learning curve continues to be honest, the learning curve continues to be a spiral. I get excited and then I get mad, and I get excited and then I get mad. But I try in that spiral to share what I'm learning, because just like you said, sometimes all it takes is one person to reach out to you and speak to you in a language that makes sense and hit in a way that makes sense to change your entire life. And I think why you and I get so excited about the topic of money is because everyone deals with it. And it unlocks power, it unlocks resource, it unlocks safety, it unlocks so much. And when you just aren't taught the rules of the game, that's it. It's so much harder to play. The game plays you. So it's really exciting to hear that you had a mentor that helped you, because the learning curve can be dizzying. I imagine it was that for you. I mean, okay, can I ask?
Yes.
I did a little bit of research because we love money and we love transparency. And I learned that when you were drafted in, I think, 2010, you were offered a 5-year, $68 million contract, right? With the Lions. My brother's going to be so proud that I know that, by the way. That's for you, Mark. But you were, 23 years old, and your finances changed so quickly. What was that like for you? I have a 23-year-old niece. I can imagine her managing that. So what was that like?
It was a little nerve-wracking, just to be honest with you. And I looked at both my parents, and from a traditional perspective, like my first check, just traditionally you give it to your father. And he, of course, gave it back to me and said, this is your money. Do what you want to do with it. But also both of them are like, just save. And I'm like, okay, I understand that. I see this. People are pressuring me to get a financial advisor, get into stocks and do all these different particular things. And I'm like, I really just don't understand this world. And this is where a guy, probably about 2 or 3 years later, was super helpful for me. And his name is Todd Perry. And he sat there and just said, like, I'm in the financial world. I'm happy for you to join my team and be a part of these different things, which I eventually did many years later. But he just taught me the game and understood that I have no idea what it is. I want to be able to ask you dumb questions, even though my mom always told me there are no dumb questions as a teacher. So just ask him and run with him. And so what I did for the first 2-3 years, especially was having a lockout in the NFL in 2011, the second year of me being in the league, I just sat in cash and just sat there and was just understanding what I wanted to do and understanding, again, stocks and bonds, where I wanted to invest, creating my own budget, saying, all right, I'm making this amount of money every single year. So half of it automatically is going to go to savings and create a nest egg.
Nice.
25%, I'm going to say, all right, I'm going to probably live off of this to some extent, whether it's I'm going to buy a place or I'm going to rent something. I want to be in a tax-free state for my other stuff. So I went and got an apartment in a place in Houston, Texas. Nice. I had the jock tax that I have to deal with and learning about that. Every single city that I play in, I got to get taxed out of. So that was a learning curve, getting a CPA, getting attorneys, all these different particular pieces. And then everybody talks about what am I doing with the ability to do private investments? And this is where my mentor, Gary Schiffman, comes in. I love real estate. I know from my mom's experience, I don't want to do residential. I don't want to deal with the sheriffs. I don't want to deal with Section 8. I want to deal with all of that stuff. So let me go into multifamily. Let me go into commercial. And I was super, super blessed because Gary said, I'm going to give you an experience of learning how to invest in real estate, and I'm going to back you 100%.
Wow.
I'm going to personally guarantee it. So you're not going to lose anything because I'm going to fully back you.
So you just get to experiment.
I just got to experiment. But any profits, anything that I made, if I don't lose, which he knew I wasn't going to lose, it's all yours. So like those experiences and those things that I try and pass down and be able to give to friends, I ain't personally backing nobody at this day and age. So don't even ask. But
you heard it here first, okay? Stay out of his DMs.
I will give you the opportunity to like leverage me as a resource. And I get challenged all the time. And I love this mentor. I'm going to keep his name out of it. But I was just with him on the East Coast and he challenged me, think bigger. Like, think about like where you're at right now and where you ultimately can get to. Like, and there's levels to this money. Yeah. Like there are levels to this. You go look at people in the Hamptons, you go look at people in New York, look at all these different things. There's different levels to this. So continue to push yourself and strive for these different things. And that's kind of really where my finances from being drafted to where I'm at right now, my goals have like really gotten a lot bigger, but also staying to the core of who I am. I really want to understand like how I can still help others, because still having those conversations of basic implementation still keeps you very, very grounded when you're having those big picture moments as well.
Yeah, that's incredible. You basically financial fairy godfathers came and saw your potential, saw your talent, saw what you were earning. And you've probably also seen many other young athletes have the opposite experience, right?
Yeah.
Of like getting massive deals. And like you said, people are putting pressure on them to do X, Y, Z, but then they might not have mentors or structure or someone to really not just show them the ropes, but like people bet on you. People were like, I see so much potential that this is like an easy bet. And so you were given capital, money to like actually, find your way and grow. Cause like you said, there's budgeting and saving and getting out of debt. And that kind of like keeps your maybe like nose above water. But I feel like something you really deeply understand and teach people is that there needs to be way more levels. You need to unlock so many more levels to be able to grow generational wealth, which I feel like a lot of first gen folks, we kind of get stuck in these cycles of kind of below that water level that our families know to just survive and live in scarcity. But you were given these like echelons and you earned these echelons of like knowledge. And so I'm a little curious if you'd like to like imagine with me, if you had like a magic wand. I was going to ask you what you wish you had when you were 23 years old to further support you. It sounds like you got a lot of support, but maybe if you wish you had other things, I'd love to hear it, because my secret dream is that other folks who are in positions of power to influence or mentor youth can help the young Ndamukons of the world. So what do you wish, if anything, you had when you were 23 and given that big deal and that bag of cash? And what do you hope folks like us now in positions of privilege could build for young people? Or how could we offer our mentorship so that we make more of you, essentially?
Yeah. One, I thank you for that. More of me would be very nice, but I want people to exceed my success
Sure.
of the small success I've had to date in life.
Mm.
But I'm going to answer your question in this manner. I'd never take anything for granted, and everything happens for a reason. So I wouldn't wish for anything to change because I wouldn't be who I am today if I hadn't had those
Mm.
experiences.
Mhm.
But what I would say is that having gone through those experiences and seeing a young Ndamukong Suh or a young Berna or whoever it may be in entertainment, sports, or media, or wherever those pieces may be, I want to have them be comfortable enough to reach out and say, let's have a conversation. And
Mm.
all I ask is for them to give the same attention to detail that I gave to those mentors that guided me and
Wow.
give as much energy as possible to it, because I think that's what set me apart from every other athlete was the
Mm.
attention to detail and the focus that they saw from me, that saying, hey, he's serious about this. You were serious about your learnings and getting out of debt and finding a way to then not only reach success for yourself, but then also pay it forward. And
Mhm.
paying it forward is only the only ability to do that is at the ability of somebody else wanting it for themselves. If you want
Mm.
it more for them than they want it for themselves, we're in a lose-lose
You're
situation.
stuck.
Yeah.
Totally.
So that's
Wow.
what I would say.
Okay. So it's a two-way street is what you're saying, right?
100%. And
But
the one amazing thing is, having done this podcast, and I'm excited about this, is that I've had a ton of people reach out to me about wanting to sit down and do those sort of things. So the more and more I get those, the more and more I want to continue to do this and share the knowledge, but then move it to a position of saying, I get to guide you and help you implement for
mm,
what's best for you as an individual.
yeah, it's a beautiful thing. And even what we started doing at the top of this podcast, where we're talking a little bit about our money stories, I'm seeing the through line now, because you're telling me that like young and Ndamukong was ready to receive the mentorship because you were locked in, you were ready to kind of step up to be mentored. It makes a lot of sense because you were 10, 12 years old being shown the ropes of entrepreneurship. And so to me, it really highlights the importance of understanding where you came from, what your money story is from the beginning. And then knowing that obviously you could change that moving forward, but your very early money story set you up to be a good mentee. And
Yeah.
so it's interesting for folks listening. There are lessons here of being both a good mentor of what you can offer and a good mentee in terms of how you receive
Yeah.
the information and the generational wealth and knowledge at the same time. So lots to learn. Very cool.
I've been a little bit kind of in infighting with myself,
Mm,
like not mixing money and family.
mm,
So I'd love to hear your thoughts around mixing money and family. And I think the best example that I could give of mixing money and family was my older sister, which I love her to death. And she's been gracious enough early on in my career. When I was in Detroit, she came and lived with me and was my no person. She helped me manage
mm.
my marketing and doing different things. But we also fought. Like, I want to do things a certain way. She wants to do certain things a certain way.
Right.
And there can be created tension. And we ended up kind of separating on good terms, but
Mhm.
she wanted to go and grow her own thing. And I wanted to kind of go and run and operate my own side of things. So also you have the factor of being a breadwinner in your family,
Mhm.
and I have an older sister, and my parents are looking at me as like, nah, he's the decision maker to some extent. And like, it creates these dynamics that I don't care for,
Mhm.
especially because even till this day, like, you're still my older sister. I still have to pay respects to that from that standpoint. So
Yes.
how do you look at it as a first generation kid coming into that and dealing with money and family?
Oh my gosh. You're blowing up so many different hallways in my brain. And I wish this podcast were 14 hours long, because
Yeah.
even you just opening up the sibling dynamic part is so
Yep.
interesting. We're talking about first generation families, and how what I'm hearing from you is that, you became a breadwinner, your sister helped manage, but your family is still looking to you as like the decision maker of things. So there's like gender politics involved, there's like sibling things involved, and it's so textured. And I think that's exactly why, what you're asking is, it gets so sensitive and it gets so
Yeah.
strange.
No
And
question.
so one piece of advice that I give to first gen families, especially if you are of the generation where you're looking around, you're like, okay, I'm starting to understand things about my money story and things like financial trauma or, things that our parents are frankly too busy to unpack. Now you feel the responsibility of like, now how do I turn this ship around for like literally my whole lineage? Like it is me to do it. I love to tell folks to start with getting your family into storytelling mode.
Okay.
For example, if we zoom back into the moments maybe where you and your sister were kind of going back and forth, maybe there was some tension, you might enter a space where it's like you might want to talk to a family member about money, but it's like weird and it gets strange and they might get defensive. And so when I say go into storytelling mode, I mean what our elders love to do and our family members love to do is talk story. Yeah. So get them talking story about money. What I did with my book, Money Out Loud, is there's a chapter in there where I interviewed my parents about money. I did get them a little tipsy for that interview, right? I brought them to a pancake house.
I don't know if I've only had one drink with my mom.
Right.
One in my entire life.
Yes.
I don't know if she'll drink with me again. My dad would be like, yeah, let's go. But unfortunately, he's passed. But I've only had one drink with my mom. So that's interesting. You got your parents tipsy. I want to hear more about this.
Filipino people, we do be liking to drink. And so I knew that a little bit of mimosa in the morning would get my parents a little loosey-goosey. Okay. But even without the influence, elders love to talk. And so I would want first-gen folks to ask really specific questions that actually unlock more of that comfortable storytelling in your family members, as opposed to I'm trying to get advice out of you or I'm trying to, this is going to come off as an attack. So questions that I asked my parents while a little tipsy, I asked them things like, do you remember what you did with your first paycheck? Do you remember what you did with your first American dollar because they immigrated from the Philippines?
Yeah, for sure.
What did you do? And the stories that came out of them were, one, incredibly entertaining, but two, also really telling for me. Then my job is to take those stories and kind of be like investigative journalist. I'm like, okay, my mom told me this wild story about using her first paycheck to buy bell bottoms in Hawaii, her first US dollars to buy bell bottoms at Goodwill.
Hold on. Can I stop you for one second? Please don't forget your thoughts.
Yes.
I can remember vividly my mom in her basement when we were growing up. Bell bottoms, these shoes, and me and my sister playing house back down there. Oh my God, I wish I could find some pictures of that because I'm going to do this. I'm going to take your advice. I'm not going to get my mom drunk, but I'm going to take her to brunch.
You have to
see if she wants a mimosa and ask her these questions. But sorry, go ahead.
No, of course. See, that's what I mean. Even in this conversation, you ask the story, immediately images come to mind, pictures come to mind. And when my mom told me that story about like buying, the first thing she bought with her American dollars were Levi's bell bottoms. The reason she did that is because she grew up with my grandmother, her mother, as a tailor. And my Lola would basically take apart the same dress every year and re-sew it for her birthday, which my mom was like, we never got new clothes. So the first thing she wanted to buy was new clothes. Fast forward to today, that woman's love language is going to Ross and Marshall's, buying up the store for things that you don't want and throwing it at you. And so I'm like, oh my gosh, this puts so much context into why my mom does what she wants, why my dad spends the way that they do. The goal around this is to develop what I call financial empathy. We can't have healthy conversations with our family unless we all understand where we're all coming from and how they did their best with what they had. And they, answered the questions with answers that, they basically resourced themselves with whatever they had. And so use storytelling mode to unlock the tension around family money stories and to just get the conversation going. It starts with breaking the silence. The silence keeps us quiet, keeps us ignorant, but there's nothing more fun than listening to your family go in about money stories. I'd ask them, what'd you do with your first paycheck? I asked them the worst piece of financial advice you've ever gotten. Lolo and Lola, what were they like with money? What did, did they give you allowance? What was that like? Get them into storytelling mode, and it just unlocks so much to begin those conversations.
No, I'm going to have to, so brunch, my kids running around, my mom, my sister, and my wife.
Yep.
Yeah, this is going to be an interesting one. I don't know if I'm going to be able to film it because my mom, she probably won't be as open, but
we'll report back when you do. We can unpack the stories.
Back. I'll bring back the details to the pod. Okay.
Yes. Yeah. What about yourself, actually? What is something that you use to navigate money conversations as a first gen? Is there anything that you found, a lesson that you found that has been helpful for you in communicating boundaries?
Yeah, I think The biggest thing for me is, especially like when I've had to, again, being seen as a breadwinner and all these
Mhm.
different particular pieces, I think something that I've tried to always do is make sure my sister's in the conversation, my mom's in the conversation, my dad's in the conversation. And
Mhm.
like, this is a family. I'm not the sole person to make a decision. And like, one of the things we're going through some family stuff right now, just with the passing of my dad, and like
Mm.
all these different pieces that have to deal with financial issues that we're dealing with, especially with my younger sisters. So my dad was remarried, is like understanding like, you're the main decision maker and you're going to, I'm here to support you, but ultimately I'm following your guidance. Now, if you want me to make a decision, I'm happy to make a decision because I feel that I'm going to come with it from a logical perspective. And I know there's emotions and all these different things like that. I am also emotional from this standpoint as well.
Mm.
But I do have a part of myself where I can say I can cut off my emotions to some extent and just make a decision from that standpoint. So if you are
Mm.
too emotional from that standpoint, being in the mix of this, then let's stop and let me make the decision and then we can come back to it. So I think
Mm.
it's process oriented is how I become about it versus just saying, oh, he's an end all be all decision maker. And then that creates resentment
Mm.
in the family dynamics, which I don't want. And so navigating through those pieces, it's been really trial and error with those pieces for me. And it's something that's evolved over time. And really, also to your point, hearing those stories and seeing my wife's stories with her family and how those have worked and how they've not
Mhm.
worked as well. And then also seeing what some of those traumas were during their conversations and what was okay to talk about, what wasn't okay
Wow.
to talk about,
Mhm.
and internalizing them and making sure that I hold them close to the vest because guess what? When I have to have a discussion with my wife about money if we're spending something or whatever it may be, and why we're budgeting this way and where we're looking for the long term, I can also say she may not take this if I
Mm.
present it in this way. And
Mhm.
that's in a lot of conversations, everything is about presentation.
Yeah.
How do I present it to you? Do I present it to you in a space that you can receive it? Or do I put it
Mm.
in your face to where now I'm making you defensive and
Yep.
I'm putting you in a position to where all you're going to do is fight me just to fight me because that's your normal reaction from that
Yeah.
standpoint. And so I'll give you this example. This is probably the best way with just me and my wife. And oh, she was hot, like
Uh-oh.
hot.
What
I
happened?
honestly never seen her as mad as when I said we went to Turks and Caicos this past summer.
Mm.
Quick vacation. Oh, it wasn't quick. We were there for a week.
Mhm.
I said, it was the second day that we were there. I said, hey, do you mind that I set up a meeting for our estate planning? Because our estate planning, one of our attorneys happened to be in Turks as well.
Oh, wow.
So I said, let's just meet, come to the villa, do all these different things. And my wife gave me the dirtiest look. Like, why in the world would you set up a meeting when we're on vacation?
Oh,
I was like,
okay.
it's a win-win. Like we're on vacation. We get to talk about estate planning. Like it's only an hour out of the day. It's in the smack middle of the day. Oh,
Yeah.
she was upset. But then also with
So
that,
funny. Mhm.
what came with it was started to understand a little bit more. She wants to be in the know, but she wants a short 10, maybe
Mm.
5-10 minute synopsis of what the situation is and
Yeah.
how it affects us as a family and what our goals are. She
Mm.
doesn't want to sit there for an hour because when I'm sitting there watching her and we're having this conversation with our estate attorney, she's like, she just started to glaze over
You can see
after
the
the first 10,
signs.
15. It's like,
Uh-huh.
and then she later on in the conversation, she was like, you guys just repeated yourself like 10, 15 times. But she was also not realizing we're repeating myself, but on different levels and different
Mm.
conversations through it. So it's like still breaking those things down and understanding. So it's still a learning curve for her to some extent. And I've obviously had
Mm.
more experience because I've sat in a lot more of those meetings and whatnot. And
Mm.
so it's also one of those things where it's like a balance. I got to push her a little bit, but
Mm.
also I got to understand where she's coming from and find that middle sweet ground and whatnot. So
That's a lot of work, but that tells me there was a lot of pre-work too. You had these conversations to recognize the triggers in each other. And like you said, trial and error, you probably won't be tapping your estate planner on vacation ever again. You know what I mean? Like it's these things that you learn as you're going. And it's a revolving and evolving relationship with money. I think that's so true, whether you're first generation or anybody else.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I'd be remiss if I didn't ask you, especially in our inaugural Berna conversation. What is the biggest and best tip that you would share right now when it comes to money and setting healthy boundaries with your family?
Oof. Okay. So besides the storytelling tip, which I would do just as a good time, just as a hobby, I would do it. And it happens to be a good tip. I would also say that a lot of us who are first gen have problems setting boundaries and expressing to our family what we can and can't do. Okay. Especially when you are from a community like mine, like utang na loob, you have that blood debt you give. And so I always tell people exactly what you were saying about how you present information. Mm-hmm. What I tell my folks is always communicate what you can do to your family, especially if you're talking to family back home, you're tithing, you're giving things. Communicate what you're excited to do, communicate what you're able to do, what you're happy to do. Mm-hmm. When you start to communicate, I can't give you that even though you want it. It's not enough. I can't give you that much this month. It triggers all these other emotions, guilt, blame, resentment. And so start communicating from a place of this is what's comfortable for me. This is what I'm excited to give you. This is how I'm excited to support you. And maybe there are even ways that you are supporting family or supporting each other that are not monetary. Maybe it's time. Maybe it's mentorship. Really make sure you're communicating that from a place of this is what I'm excited to give you because this is how I'm showing my love in one way. I'm excited for this to be a conversation. Go from that place of positivity of what I can offer, because then it just kind of tinges the whole conversation in a positive light. Because what we know is then there's that dark, scary under the avalanche, under the iceberg place of all the dark places it could go. Yeah. Keep it up here, keep it above board, keep it what I can offer, and kind of that symbiotic conversation, and things will go a little more smoothly.
No, I love that. And I echo a lot of that because for myself, again, the presentation is everything.
Yes.
But ultimately, how I also look at it as an individual is stop and just listen. Mm-hmm. If you just sit there and listen, you will gain a lot more information versus leading the conversation. And I know sometimes it's tough because you're expected to somewhat lead that conversation, but start it, but then retreat back and just listen. Mm-hmm. Because I think that's going to be where you learn the most. So then you can have bigger and more broader conversations and then also get further into details from that standpoint. So Berna, this has been an amazing conversation. Our first one, but first of many. I look forward to catching up again here soon, but this has been great. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been a blast.
It's time for the Confidently Curious question, where we ask questions that are one step ahead, sponsored by Piro, where they believe that asking better questions can lead to better outcomes. So my Confidently Curious question of the day is, what's the word that means a plan for how you spend your money? Aha. A ledger, B, a balance sheet, C, a budget. I love this question. The answer is C, a budget. So for me personally, I have a family budget, but let's talk about my kids. So my kids have an unlimited budget when it comes to educational items, but they have a very stringent budget when it comes to them wanting toys or things that are for activities that aren't necessarily something that they're going to be educationally stimulated on. So for my kids, when it comes to a budget, ultimately, they get anything and everything that they need to be successful in life. But when it comes to toys and things that they want, daddy may bend the rules and they get something once a month. That's our Confidently Curious question for the week. Thanks to our sponsor, Piro, for modeling the power of better questions and their approach for making better investment decisions. Piro proudly sponsors No Free Lunch. The views expressed in this podcast are those of the podcast participants and do not necessarily reflect those of T. Rowe Price. Their sponsorship supports the platform and does not imply endorsement of specific content or perspectives. Thank you for watching the show. It was a great episode. Tell me what you want to see next. Like, comment, subscribe to No Free Lunch, and watch your podcast, whether it's on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts.